So they want us to identify the domain and range of a function. Now, a couple videos ago I explained that, but we'll see it here, and more examples will help, definitely. Okay, so on A here, what would be the domain? In the book they use set builder notation and interval notation. I'm just going to use interval notation. So you're thinking about, where does the graph start along the x-axis? It starts at -2. That is a closed dot there, okay? So bracket -2. And then you're walking along the x-axis. It starts right here. Keep walking. Where does the graph stop? It stops here at 1. Again, this is a closed dot, so square bracket, okay? That's the domain. Now, I usually tell students, turn your head sideways, and we're going to do the range. So now we're going to go from the lowest point here up to when the graph stops here. So it's going to include the 0. It's starting at 0, right? And then it's going up. We're walking up the wall up to 3, and it's stopping. So that's the domain and range. So the domain goes left to right, and the range goes bottom to top. Okay? All right, so maybe that'll help. All right, B, where am I going to write the answer? Well, we're starting here at, oops, I should switch, -3, but that is a parenthesis because it's an open dot. See it? And then we're going, and we're stopping at 2, but 2 will have a bracket because that's a closed dot. All right, now the tricky part. Turn your head sideways. So the range is what's the lowest point? Well, right here is where we're kind of starting, and that is 1, but it's an open dot, so 1 up to right here, which is 2, and that's a closed dot, so the range is 1 to 2. Okay? The more examples you see, the easier it'll get. These take a while. You might want to practice some of these in the book, so there's an extra set and videos on those. All right. Domain, where do we start? -2. That's a square bracket because it's a closed dot. Where do we stop? Along the x-axis here. I'm stopping at 1, but that's going to have a parenthesis. Okay, now the range, turn your head sideways because we want to know y values. What's the lowest point? Right here is the lowest point, 1. That is included. It's part of the graph. And then how high does it go? It goes up to 5. Now you might be saying, yeah, but the other side doesn't go up to 5. It doesn't matter. Part of the graph goes up to 5. And that is a closed bracket there. Okay? Now you might be saying, well, what about that open dot at 2? Yeah, but it's still a y value because over here, that point has a y value of 2. So it's in the range. Okay. I'm hoping it all makes sense. You might have to watch this video again. Okay, sometimes this is a little tricky, but hopefully it makes sense. All right, domain, where are we starting? Well, that's an arrow. So my domain, I'm actually starting from -infinity, and then I'm going to 4. And that's a closed dot, so bracket there. And then what about the range? So domain, left to right, range, bottom to top. So how low, what is the y value here? What is that point? That point is 4, 0. What's that y value? 0. So we're starting at 0, and we're going up. Now, we're going up, we're going along here, and it's going to go to infinity because of that arrow. It's still continuing up. It's not going up very quickly, but it's continuing forever, so it does increase. So it's going to infinity. Okay. So this last one's a little harder. It's called a step function. Where does it start? Well, on the x-axis, it's starting at 1. So the domain is going to go from, it's a square bracket, 1. Now, all these points between 1 and 2 are covered. They're points on the graph. They all have an x value. Like if I'm Mario, I can jump up and hit that graph, right? And then even if I'm at 2, I can jump up and hit the graph. And 2.5, I can hit the graph. And 3, I can hit the graph. Up until at 4, I can't hit the graph anymore because that's an open dot. So my domain is from 1 to 4. All of those points are covered. I'm going to erase it so you can see it better again. But if I'm walking along from 1 to 4, whoops, I went past 4, to 4, I can jump up and hit the graph for all those numbers except 4 because that's an open dot. Okay? Let that think. Think about that. Let it marinate. Maybe go back and review this part. Okay. The range, this is what throws students. What are the outputs? Well, I have an output of 1, I have an output of 2, and I have an output of 3. That is just 1, 2, and 3. It's not an interval. There's not an infinite numbers. So think about this function. It's called f of x. Think about f of 1. You get an output of 1. What about f of 1.5? Still get an output of 1, right? So like that'd be like right there. Think about f of 1.99. Still getting an output of 1. Now what happens at f of 2? Now I get an output of 2. So when I get to the 2, I'm jumping up and I'm getting up there to 2. What about f of 2.5? Still getting 2. What about f of 2.99? Still getting 2. Okay, but what happens at f of 3? Now I'm getting an output of 3. Because now I'm here and I'm jumping up and I'm getting 3. Okay? I never get an output of like 2.5 or 2.7 or something. I get an output of 1, then I get an output of 2, and then last, I'm kind of out of room, I'm getting an output of 3. But that happens up to 3.99, you know? I'm getting 3. What happens at f of 4? We say it's undefined. Undefined. Okay? So there are only 3 outputs, so we list them. Finite number of outputs. That was a little tricky.